the CoPrimary palette. So we're here in terms of what amounts to the full color palette. If you've been following along with my classes, we started off with one color, then we went to 2 colors, then we went to 3, and now we're going to 6. And this palette from here on out is going to be the core of your full color palette for the rest of your life. You can substitute these colors for other colors. You can add to it. If you're doing limited palette kind of stuff, you can take away from it. But these colors need to be here. This is where you're going to get the maximum amount of range out of your colors with a minimum amount of starting colors. Now, it might be worth going through really quick the colors that I use, because they're on the palette here anyway, just to give you an idea of what I mean by adding to this. So these are the basic colors we're going to be talking about in a minute. Let me move that so you guys can see. All right, so this is Indian Yellow, my absolute favorite color of all the colors on the palette. Indian Yellow is magic. This is Armenian Gold Ochre. This is a Chrome Yellow. This is Transparent Yellow Oxide. This is Stildegrain. This is Lemon Yellow. And the Chrome Yellow medium is the same as this, which this is something cadmium replacement, something. This is Yellow Ochre, Cobalt Green. This is Chrome Green, Sap Green, Phthalo Green, Cerulean Blue, which should be similar to this. Mine is a little darker than the one I'm using here. This is, I can't pronounce that, but it's a blue-green, another you could substitute that for this one. Ultramarine Blue, you see it here. This is Indigo up here. This is Prussian Blue. I'm not even sure what this is, like a quinacridone violet, I think. I think that's like a naphthol red. There's a dioxine violet here. Alizarin crimson. The paint I have is, it's Crimson Madder Lake, but it's the same color as alizarin crimson, so I just call it that. These are various brighter sort of middle reds. This is orange molybdate. This is the like genuine vermilion, the mercuric sulfide. This is where I keep my various reds over here, my earth reds. So I think today I was using Pompeii red, but I also have a Puzzoli and Venetian red that I like over here. I have 2 different Indian reds. This is Armenian Mummy. This is Violet Hematite. This is a transparent red ochre, Ivory Black, and this is Ultramarine Blue mixed with raw umber to make a black that dries really fast. So that gives you an idea of what I'm up to on my full palette. And there are a few other colors that I might pull in here and there, but for the most part, that's all I use. But really, the vast majority of the colors I use are right here. And my whites I keep over here. I pretty much always just use different variations of lead white over here. So here we go. Move that back into place. Okay, so the CoPrimary palette and the idea behind it is instead of having only 3 primaries, you have 2 versions of each one. And remember, the primary colors are the colors you can't mix. So it pays to have as many of them as possible. Now, if we go through each one, we say, this yellow, we have to think about what is yellow capable of doing. When yellow sits on the spectrum, it has orange on one side and green on the other. So yellow leans towards orange here, towards green here. blue leans in two different directions. If we threw Prussian blue in, we might have a different sort of universe of blues to play with, but for now, Cerulean leans towards green and Ultramarine leans towards purple. Our Alizarin here leans towards purple, and our orange Molybdate is a red that leans towards orange. Now, you guys are, if you're in the class, you're unlikely to have a color that's quite this orange. The red that you get might actually be a little bit closer to this. But if you get cadmium red light, it should look like this, but be like sort of halfway between those two. And when we go to mix these, one of the things you've noticed if you painted with the primary palette, which was yellow ochre, ultramarine blue, and Indian red, you could make all the hues that you saw, but your intensities were all really low. Here, we're going to be able to hit all the hues, all the values, and we're going to set up a ceiling for how bright we can go on different colors. And there are limitations here, and that's where some of the tube colors for secondary colors come in. I usually do this demo with my class on green. I'll do my green demo, and then I'll bring it over into some of the other colors, because there's some cool stuff that happens. So here we go. So if we're trying to make the brightest possible green, we go towards, and we go towards. I may need a little extra yellow here to make it so you guys can see it. Okay, so that's at that value, that's as bright as that green is going to get. Now what we can do is play around, and we can say we're going away from green and we're going towards green. And I'm trying to make sure that my values are the same so you can make those comparisons. And you can see that this one is a little bit duller. Not too much, but then again, this yellow isn't leaning as far towards orange as some of the colors you could find. If you have a cadmium yellow medium here, it'll be a lot more orange. And if you wanted to, you could mix a little bit of this in with this, and you'll get a duller result. But anyway, and then, so we went one away and one towards. Now we go one away and one towards. And we can see, because of the strength of the ultramarine blue, it's a little bit darker, but it's also a little bit duller. And now, let me squeeze out a little more Indian, or lemon yellow, just in case we need it. Now if we go away and away, it's even duller. And then of course you guys remember this one, which is again away and away. Both ultramarine blue and yellow ochre both lean away from green. So when you put those two together, I mean, my palette is essentially green, so this shows up as the same color. And it's arguable whether or not it's green. So that's how you think your way through specific colors. If you know that you need the brightest possible green at that value, then you go with both colors leaning towards. If you know you need a really dull one, start with both colors going away. If it's somewhere in the middle, try a couple different options and see what happens. But that's, I mean, that's basically what you need to know about the CoPrimary palette. When, I'll continue to play a little bit, but one of the things that's super important is when you're painting, you have to make sure that your paints are on your palette. A very, very key idea in painting is that any color that gets on your painting has to go through your palette first. If it's not out, it's not getting to your painting. If you're painting something that's blue and all you have is ultramarine blue and white, and then you're wondering why your color is simplistic and flat and there's just doesn't have anything to it, it's because you only used one color plus white. Get them all involved. Especially when you're new to color, you have to experiment and try different things. So if we go for, let's do orange. If we go towards and towards, you can see we get, at that value we get quite a yellow, or quite a yellow-orange. If we go a little bit on the redder side, we can get it even brighter. The orange molybdate is really strong. All right, so this is where it starts to get like brown real fast. So if we go towards on one side and away on the other, you can see that dropped considerably. And then we go towards and away. Huh, the orange is just blowing it out of the water here, okay. It's a little bit brighter because of the strength of the red. But if we go, oh, wrong side, away and away, again we get this brown. So we're not getting quite as dull as some of the lower intensity colors we got over here, but pretty interesting. So now if we go to purple and we go towards and we go towards, it just looks like black to you guys, so I'm going to add a tiny bit of white. So that's a really, really bright, I'm leaning it a little more towards blue, but a nice bright purple. Now if we go towards purple and away from purple, a little bit of white. You can see what's going on there. It's much, much duller. Now if we go towards purple and away from purple, in these darker values, purple is always a little bit brighter. But duller than that, but really pretty. Definitely a useful purple. And then if we go away and away, it's so dull that we almost have a hard time calling it purple. Now, this whole thing was about how to deal with secondaries, but this palette is also going to allow you to make a lot of nuances within the original colors that we started with here. So keep that in mind. The first full color painting I have you guys do is, in order to keep things just a little bit simpler, I ask you to set up a still life with like all blue stuff or all yellow stuff. And then you just use the nuances that you create from those originals. So things are a little bit simpler. And then as we go through the rest of the semester, you'll be able to hit this full thing. But hopefully the thinking that I just laid out is clear enough for you guys to be able to use it right away. And the thing about mixing color is that it's not supposed to be a mystery. It's not supposed to be difficult. It's supposed to be repeatable and logical